Alright guys, so I've been asked to explain in a video the difference between muscle dysmorphia and the Adonis complex, when in fact muscle dysmorphia and the Adonis complex are essentially the same thing. A lot of people seem to be under the impression that the Adonis complex means that someone is obsessed with themselves, but at the same time they think they are like an Adonis or think of themselves as a god, whereas muscle dysmorphia is someone who is a big muscular guy that does not see themselves as a big muscular guy. And essentially, the two things are the same thing. The Adonis complex is not somebody who has a really high self-esteem. In fact, the Adonis complex is someone who is obsessed with their own body, but they're obsessed with their body in the sense that they feel that they can never be big enough. They're always striving to get bigger, and they always see their body as not adequate or below average, and they're always striving to get bigger. So that's muscle dysmorphia and the Adonis complex. They're essentially the same thing. It's a big buff guy or an above average muscular guy looking in the mirror and seeing someone below average and constantly striving to attain a bigger physique. And I have a theory on muscle dysmorphia and the Adonis complex that there is no singular phase. I believe that muscle dysmorphia and the Adonis complex are just a phase within a larger cycle, and I want to explain that here shortly. So I think this cycle begins with insecurity. I think that everybody who generally, this is a broad generalization, but I believe that everybody who starts lifting for material purposes, solely for the purpose of lifting to build muscle, aside from sports, I believe these people start because they have a low self-esteem. I believe they start because of bullying, or to get a girl, or because they want to look better for something, or they just want to be attractive. All the stories that you hear of why people start lifting or why they get into bodybuilding, it's always like they were bullied, they were trying to get a girl, or they were going to play sports. So I believe that generally this cycle starts. The start of this cycle is a phase of insecurity, and that phase of insecurity is what leads to the next phase, which I want to call the beginner or the noob phase. When the person starts going to the gym and they start seeing gains, and they get this new sense of self-esteem, and this new sense of security, and this new sense of cockiness. They get this arrogance about them, because once they start going to the gym and once they start seeing those initial gains, they get this sudden rush, this sudden boost, this adrenaline boost of testosterone. And I believe that this is a phase in and of itself. When you start lifting, you start seeing those gains, and you start getting cocky, and you start looking at yourself and just thinking there's nothing else but you. You're focused on yourself, you're obsessed with yourself, you're satisfied with yourself, and you see yourself as a god. There's this phase where you're cocky, and this phase where you're just getting started, and this phase where you only look at yourself. Now that's the beginner phase, when you're seeing these noob gains, and you just get this rush of confidence and this rush of adrenaline. Now I think there's a phase after that, and this is the phase that I believe is kind of transferring over to the Adonis complex. There's in between these noob gains and this confidence, there's this phase where you start comparing yourself to other people. Now those of you that lift weights and those of you that are into bodybuilding know what I'm talking about. There's a phase when you still look at yourself as muscular, and you still look at yourself as physically, I don't want to say superior, but you still look at yourself as a top physical specimen. You still have a high opinion of yourself. But at the same time, you're starting to compare yourself to other guys. You're starting to feel, quote-unquote, threatened by other guys who are somewhat muscular, or other guys who appear to work out. And you'll constantly find yourself comparing yourself to these other guys. And you transfer from this phase into muscle dysmorphia, because in this phase, you still have a lot of confidence, and you still see yourself as big. But when you transfer to muscle dysmorphia in the Adonis complex, you start to compare yourself to these other guys, and you're thinking, man, that guy's bigger. Man, there's a lot of guys out there that are bigger than me. Man, I need to work out more. Man, I need to eat more. Man, I need to gain weight. I need to get bigger. There's a lot of guys bigger than me. And after that, I feel like you reach a level of acceptance. After you pass on from the muscle dysmorphia phase, I think you do move on from that eventually. and you accept, there's only a certain level of muscularity that you can achieve naturally, or there's only a certain level of muscularity that you can achieve on drugs, or there's only a certain level of muscularity that you can achieve with your specific set of genetics. And I believe eventually, as you learn more and you become more educated, there's a phase that I call acceptance. And in this acceptance phase, you accept what your limits are, and you accept your body, and you more or less focus on maintenance. And I believe that's kind of the cycle of bodybuilding. That's the whole cycle. I don't think muscle dysmorphia or the Adonis complex alone can sum up the feelings and the emotions that someone who works out goes through, or some of the quote unquote mental illnesses or mental afflictions that they go through. I don't think that can sum it all up. I think there's multiple stages and multiple phases with muscle dysmorphia in the middle. And that's kind of what this video is about. This is my theory on bodybuilding, and this is what I believe is the cycle. If you have experienced, some of these things I'm talking about, like starting to compare yourself to other people, starting to feel small even though you're actually big, let me know in the comment section. Let me know if you've gone through this too. Let me know if you agree with this cycle. I know when I started lifting, I went through that beginner phase where you see all kinds of gains, all kinds. And you're just going crazy because you've gained so much weight in such a short period of time, and you're starting to focus on yourself, and you just gain this sudden rush of confidence. And I know when I started because I was fat and I had no confidence and I wanted to gain some. So that was my reason for starting. Phase 1. Phase 2, gaining all that sudden confidence. Phase 3, starting to realize I'm not the biggest guy in the world and starting to compare myself to other people while maintaining that confidence. Stage 4, starting to realize, hey, I'm really not that big. There's a lot of guys way bigger than me. I need to get bigger. Stage 5, starting to realize, okay, I'm starting to get about as big as I can get naturally. I'm starting to reach my genetic potential. I'm over 200 pounds in the off season, and some of these guys on steroids are barely getting over 200 pounds, or barely getting over 220, or barely getting over whatever. So I'm starting to accept the fact that I can only get so big, and I'm starting to accept the fact that I can only get so strong, or so lean, or so muscular, or whatever, what have you. And I'm sort of in that acceptance maintenance phase that, I'm not going to get huge. I'm not going to get a lot bigger than I am now. I'm not going to see gains like I saw, 5, 6, 7 years ago. I'm starting to realize I need to work more on maintaining. And that's how I see this cycle of bodybuilding. So let me know in the comments if you agree with me. Let me know if you've experienced all these things yourself, and give this video a like if you never really thought about bodybuilding in this way, in this psychological context. Because in a way, I think that this is human evolution. This bodybuilding thing is new. In nature, the male in every species is the one that's colorful. It's the one with markings. It's the one with physical attributes. It's the one with some sort of thing that sets it apart from other males or other members of its species in order to be dominant, in order to attract the female, in order to achieve greatness in its ecosystem. The male in all these species is always the one that's marked. It's always the one with physical attributes. The male peacock is the one with the colorful feathers, not the female. It's the male that shows off. We see this constantly in nature, and I feel like in the course of human evolution, males didn't really work on their physical bodies to attract women until this past century. In the past, it was clothes, it was status, it was riches, it was these things that attracted women in the early days of human history. And now that they're realizing they can change their bodies, and they're realizing that women like when they change their bodies, and women are attracted to muscles, and women are attracted to muscularity, I think this is a new course in human evolution as to how males become males, as to how males mark their territory, as to how males get the girl, as to how males become dominant. I feel like this is a new thing that's going to change the course of human history, this bodybuilding thing that's only been prevalent for the past 100 years. Because in the past, humans haven't really used their God-given physical bodies to attract women. It's been power, it's been wealth, it's been social status, it's been money. and vaguely based on appearance. It's been fixed marriages and things like that. And now people are starting to realize they can manipulate their bodies to attract women. I feel like this is going to open up a whole new world of just human potential. So those are my thoughts on this cycle that is bodybuilding. So let me know what you think of the video. Give me a like, give me a subscribe. Nick Miller.